shortly. But I just want to change the subject a little bit because with what seems curious timing to me, employees will now have the right to request flexible working from the moment they start a job, with companies obliged to explain their reasons if it is then refused. And that's what's going to come out in a consultation document. You can bet your bottom dollar that's going to be law. And I just am wondering about the timing of this, and I'm wondering about the effect it's going to have in a workplace environment that none of us are really quite sure what it's going to be like. And is this just another burden on our hard-pressed employers, which frankly is not entirely necessary? You can tell me your thoughts on 0344 499 1000. But for now, I'm very pleased to welcome Georgia Gilholy, who is political commentator with Young Voices UK. Hello, Georgia.
Hi, Nick. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's a bit of a change of a direction suddenly for us on this show. We're becoming all sorts of things. And I wanted to talk about this because I both have a background in small business. I meet and talk to many, many businesses out there. And I just didn't see this coming. And I'm curious as to what you may think. Are there politics behind this? Is it the government introducing another level of intervention, which frankly seems explicable from a timing point of view? To be honest, I'm not quite sure what to make of the what and the why.
I think it's interesting that I believe at the start of the week, at the Trade Unions Congress, Keir Starmer actually presented a slightly more extreme version of this policy. So he recommended that, I guess he suggested that in the next Labour manifesto, they would actually force
necessary hassle. Georgia, welcome back. I think you mentioned Keir Starmer, and given that the Labour Party are refusing to talk to it seems anyone today, maybe you got cut off by some mysterious signal.
House and my Wi-Fi situation isn't secured yet, so that's the issue. My apologies.
Okay, no worries.
I was just saying that, so earlier in the week at the Trade Unions Congress, at his big sort of it wasn't really that big or exciting, Keir Starmer's keynote speech at the TUC, he proposed forcing all employers to permit flexible working from day one, so like a more sort of extreme version of the government's announcement. My one concern is that whether it were to be that extreme policy after the consultation, so forcing all employers to permit flexible working, or this sort of a bit more watered down version which would involve requesting it. That doesn't mean it's going to be approved, right? I think it's unrealistic and ineffective. So let's say it does put pressure on companies to permit that. That's not fair, especially to small businesses. I'm sure you understand that, saying that, you were just saying you're a former small business owner. If you're a small business, you can't afford to train maybe multiple people at once for the same role. You can't afford to, let's say you've been looking for a certain role to be filled for a long time in a certain area of the business, and you can afford to train one person. You're not going to accept a flexible working policy. Let's say it's a really intense corporate environment, maybe in a bigger business. Maybe you're not willing to accept that. So I think on the one hand, you think about it maybe really inconveniencing small businesses who have already faced so much hassle over the past year or so. And on the other hand, you think, okay, maybe if it's a big business, they can afford to do that. But realistically, let's say if it's a competitive law firm, they're not going to accept the request. It's not going to happen.
You see, the problem I have with this is it's all about the timing. And if you listen to what, for example, Angela Rayner has said, she says Labour will give workers the right to flexible working, not just the right to request it, and give all workers full rights from day one on the job. I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking, if I was running my business again, I don't think I'd take any staff on. I'd just use freelancers. I don't want all this hassle. And there are options still, even though the government are intervening at a huge level in this business. What I don't either understand is why a Conservative government thinks that actually this is going to help business at a time they need helping. And that, I suppose, is where I'm struggling. It seems we go through fashions, and the argument that the pandemic means we should do this, I don't get. The pandemic we had to respond to. And it seems like whilst we're all beginning to recover, we're now making up policies on the hoof to look good. And I suppose my question to you is If the politics are to wrong foot the Labour Party, how can the Conservative Party say they're the party of business?
I think that for a very long time, the Conservative Party has not been able to say that it's the party of business, maybe to huge businesses who they do dodgy deals with. But I think especially, over the past 18 months, what they've done to businesses, especially small businesses during the pandemic, is absolutely unacceptable. So I think it would be bizarre at this point to claim that the Conservatives are the party of business. If they could try and say that, it would only be in contrast to, I guess, radical elements of the Labour Party. In terms of why they're doing this, I think, maybe it's to look a little bit more, quote-unquote, fashionable, sort of having a watered-down version of Labour, which is basically what the Conservative Party is now anyway, and has been for a long time. No offence to you as a former Conservative MP.
I wouldn't be doing this job if I took offence every time someone had a pop at the Conservatives, I promise you.
Yeah, and also, you're not Conservative MP anymore, so I don't know what that says about your views, but and I think, who knows, this could be maybe, because let's say you're in your 30s, you're now a homeowner, you're a parent or whatever, maybe you do want flexible working, or let's say you're rich and work for you is just a bit of a hobby. Okay, maybe you would vote for the Conservatives because, they're in favour of that. I don't know. I think it could just be a bit of an appeal to that kind of voter, but realistically, I mean, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in people's votes, this kind of thing.
It's not, is it? It's not a driver to vote. So I beg the question again, but I'll ask a slightly a different nuanced point of view. Look, businesses, good businesses, will know if flexible working works for them, and they will bring it in with or without government interference. What I suspect is going on here, and I think it's a huge political problem for whoever's in power, is they look at those a smaller group of companies that do not do it, and they'll look at statistics that say perhaps 1 in every 3 applications for flexible working are turned down, and they'll draw the wrong conclusion. There are very good reasons why not everyone can, every employer can agree to flexible working. And so when they see statistics like that, they introduce something that works to the lowest common denominator on the basis that it's the worst possible reasons are being given, and it intervenes with businesses at every level, including the good businesses. Why do we not hear more robustly, do you think, from employers, CBI, the Small Business Federation, to challenge the government's thinking on these things? Why is it down to people like you and people like me and people like our listeners?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, in some of the stuff I've been reading about this issue this week, there aren't actually many, quotes from those kind of groups. So it would be nice to see more of them. I don't know. I think possibly it's because maybe the groups that represent businesses are kind of...
I think they're scared of offending. I actually
maybe
think they're scared of offending.
Yeah. To the realities of actually running businesses, because if you're working for I guess you couldn't call those organisations unions, but that kind of thing is more like bureaucracy. You're not actually working for a business, you're not running the business. Anyone who's had any experience in the private sector, especially in a smaller business, which obviously I've never been a business owner, I'm only 23, but I've worked for small organisations, you know that is just completely unrealistic. The government has absolutely no business meddling in this. There are reasons why in some situations flexible working is possible, and some situations it simply isn't.
And that's the reality, Georgia. I feel, and I sense your frustration and mine, this shouldn't go away. It shouldn't be unchallenged. Let's continue doing that. Thank you, Georgia Gilholy, political commentator with Young Voices.